Hello world, welcome to Real Talk with Professor Swag, and today we're going to talk about Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, also known as Flight 370. And the reason we're going to talk about that today is because today is exactly 7 years since that flight disappeared and has no longer been seen. The flight had 220 something passengers on there, along with 12 crew members from the staff, which totaled up to 239, I believe. Well, anyway, I'm just going to give you my little theory on what I think happened in regards to that flight. Okay, so first thing first, I'm going to mention a little bit about the Houston Space Shuttle that blew up in the air back in 2003. I can't remember if it was Discovery or if it was Columbia, but one of the space shuttles that blew up over East Texas in 2003. I'm going to utilize that, and I'm going to bring that in somehow correlation to Flight MH370 as far as my theory, if that makes sense to you all. Okay, so first thing first, we're going to talk about the space shuttle blowing up. All right, I'm from East Texas, you know. I grew up in East Texas, born and raised. However, I no longer live there. But to get to the point, if those of you who remember, in 2003, there was a space shuttle that blew up around February 2003. I believe it was like February 1st was the day that it blew up. And it blew up as it was getting ready to land, basically. It was maybe 45 minutes from landing on its return from outer space. I can't remember exactly where they were going, but it blew up in the middle of the sky. And when it blew up, it was really due to something coming apart in mid-flight, and the pressure from that from it going against the wind hitting it is what resulted in it overall blowing up. Basically, in that flight, a piece fell off and hit another portion of the spacecraft, which put a hole or damaged it. And the whole time the air crew was flying, it was basically getting more damaged and damaged and damaged over time. Upon the return, maybe 45 minutes prior to return, basically something happened. That little deficiency caused it to blow up. Basically, the damage to it resulted in it taking so much pressure, in which it blew up in the sky. Now, for me to correlate that to this particular situation, as far as my theory is, if you was living in the East Texas area like myself at the time, that the fragments from that space shuttle hit the ground so hard that it woke me up. Everyone who lived in the areas of East Texas, you know, Rusk, Palestine, White House, Troop, Overton, Kilgore, Tyler, you know, all around area code 903 in particular, that area of East Texas going into, you know, a little bit south towards Rusk and Jacksonville and Wales and Lufkin. Debris from that aircraft fell all over that area, and the impact of that debris hit the ground so hard that it woke many of us up. and I'm one of them. It actually woke me up because it felt like an earthquake hitting the ground. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about Newton's law of motion. Everybody already know that in Newton's law of motion, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, unless there's an additional force acted upon it or something like that. But for the most part, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So with that being said, this is me coming up with my logical, well, what I call logical theory. I'm not a scientist, but this is just me trying to think logically, right? The spacecraft, not the spacecraft, but the airplane, they had 239 personnel on that flight, including the pilot, the stewardess, the stewards and so forth, right? If that plane hits the ground on land, whatever it hit should have registered on a Richter scale, because the impact would have been so hard that it would have been enough. It would have felt like an earthquake. So it should have registered on the Richter scale somewhere in that area. It should have been someone, like if it hit land, and I hope some scientists see this, and I'm not perfect or whatever, but maybe they can see where I'm going with this. If it hit the ground or hit any type of landmass on soil somewhere, it should have been hit so hard that it would have registered on the Richter scale for the amount of force that was hit towards the ground. Now, let's say it did not go to the hit land. Let's say it hit water. Now, if this is a suicide pilot, even if he's trying to do some type of terroristic type act or so forth, I highly doubt that I could see a pilot flying nosedive into the water. I highly doubt that. And if he did, you would see splashes up and so forth or whatever. But I highly doubt that some random pilot is trying to trying to go nose down. And it's not logical. Not saying it can't happen, but it's very unlogical that a pilot would go nosedive inside the ocean. It's very unlogical, right? So if he crashes in the water, obviously it's going to be like a belly flop, in which you got to think, we're talking about no telling how many tons of weight from this aircraft hitting the ground, along with the luggage and the weight of the humans that are residing on this flight. That impact should have been enough to send waves, in a basically spread outward. It should have sent like a force of water waves, which would have been like somewhat of a small tsunami type effect. I ain't saying a whole bunch of water going in one direction, but I'm saying that the impact should have been enough to splash water in a 360 direction from the center point. So if there was a way to check, like the buoyancy and wavelengths of water, which I'm sure scientists probably do, but don't count on me 100, I would be surveying that area around the Indian Ocean or wherever the last radar signal from the flight took place, somewhere within about 100 or 200 nautical miles of possible impact where the plane may have landed. Now, to get to my theory, like I said, every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and with these things being said, I can't see the pilot crashing, nose diving in. So obviously, if he's going to crash into the water, I think it would be more of a belly flop type situation, in which the impact of the plane hits the water so hard that it sends waves outward, because if you drop a coin in the water, the buoyancy will bounce it up a little bit, but the waves will go in 360 from the point of entry. So I don't believe that the guy landed anywhere, honestly, I won't be surprised. Well, I believe he landed somewhere, but I don't think it was really much of a crash. I think he knew what he was doing, and he went somewhere off radar, landed, and something happened to the passengers from there. They're in some unknown location. Obviously, they can't be tracked by radar, which actually surprises me, because when you think of all this stealth technology we have out here, this airplane cannot be tracked by radar signal. You can see what's in outer space, but you can't track an airplane in the space. But to get to my point, I believe that it had to be some form of a hijacking. But the personnel, I believe, are at an unknown location. That's my belief. I'm not going to say any government got anything to do with it, because I highly doubt that the government will want to take away a whole bunch of I highly doubt a Malaysian government would do something like that, which will, affect this economy. I highly doubt it. I can't see the Malaysian government like, hey, let's just kill all these people, I don't see that with the Malaysian government. I don't see that happening at all. So to take to get to the point, I believe that the people did not crash, but I believe they are probably deceased now, if that makes any sense. And the reason I say that, because if based off the evidence from the spaceship crash, it would have left enough sitting on a Richter scale. And if scientists have checked every possible outcome like we would like to think, they should be checking the areas of where the last signal had came through, and checking all Richter scales and wavelengths, as far as the water wavelengths in certain areas, as well as the wavelengths. As far as the impact of what's happening to the Earth's surface, as far as that. But that's just my 2 cents, and hopefully the families of all these people find some closure and eventually find out what exactly happened, because no one deserves this. It sucks. I can't imagine, one day my loved one getting on a plane and they supposed to go to a destination to tell me that they're safe, but the plane never makes it to the destination. But not only it doesn't make it to the destination, neither does the airline or any scientists have any clue of where this plane is at. That's what's making it so difficult. It's one thing to lose a loved one in flight, but to not to be able to have closure as to what exactly happened is another thing. And I can only imagine those family members probably don't ever want to fly again. It's sad when you look at situations like 9/11, then you look at Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, not to mention 4 months later, Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 was shot down by Ukrainians when the Russians were having issues with Ukraine over Crimea. So it's just, the Malaysian people just had tough times with flights in that year, and I can just only imagine how things were. But anyway, tell me what your theory is. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow me. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Professor_swag. Swag is spelled with 2 G's. And you can follow me on anchor.fm/Professor-swag. And swag is still spelled with 2 G's there as well. But don't forget, hit the subscribe, and put your comments below. You get to trash talk, whatever you want to do, but make sure you put your 2 cents in below. And have a nice day.